Hello everyone, you are on the Nevestate channel where we talk about overseas real estate, whether for personal purchase, investment, obtaining residency permits, or citizenship. My name is Julia Szczerbak and I am a specialist in residency and citizenship programs. Today I want to tell you about passport programs currently available in 2025. Right now, many people are looking for new opportunities and destinations to obtain a second passport or a residence permit abroad, and for various reasons, for travel, relocation, children's education, business, or preserving their capital. So today we'll talk about these opportunities for obtaining second citizenship and residence permits, about the current changes in these programs. I'll briefly tell you about the conditions and requirements for these programs, giving a short overview of each one. And if any program or country interests you, you can leave your information below this video. All our contact details are there, and I will be happy to give you a more detailed consultation. Let's start with citizenship programs. On the screen, you can see two citizenship programs that are currently in high demand. These are Turkey, Vanuatu, and the European Residence Permit Program. We'll start with the citizenship programs, beginning with Turkey. Turkey has consistently attracted interest, although it declined last year after 2 years of high demand. But now we are once again seeing an upward trend. This is not surprising, since with this passport you can even make a profit by investing in real estate starting from $400,000. Moreover, it doesn't have to be a single property, it can be several. After just 3 years, you can sell this real estate, get your investment back, and even make a profit if you rent it out or buy property at the construction stage. The passport will remain with you forever and it can be passed on to the next generation. But it's important to understand where and what kind of property you need to buy in order to make a profit. And that's where we come in. We'll help you, advise you, and find the most profitable investment properties. As for the requirements of the passport program, in general, the program itself is not complicated in terms of document collection. The average processing time right now is about 6 to 8 months. This gives you the opportunity to live in Turkey and educate your children. There are many different international schools and universities in Turkey. There is also an opportunity to obtain an E2 visa to the United States. If you're interested in this visa, I can provide more detailed individual consultation about it. The main thing to pay attention to here is that in addition to spouses, children under 18 are included. This is the limitation, and the value of the property must match the cadastral value. Therefore, here as well, you need to be very careful when choosing a property to ensure that it already has official permission for citizenship processing. Yes, for example, if it is still under construction. Also, as I mentioned earlier, you can purchase several properties here, and they are not always residential. They can also be commercial properties. For example, take this property you see on the screen right now, which is located in an area with high demand for long-term rentals, as well as strong demand on the domestic resale market. In other words, it is rented not only by tourists and those who come for temporary work, but also by people who live there permanently. Because here you need to keep in mind that the same property you plan to sell in 3 years cannot be used twice for the citizenship program. Therefore, you need to think about to whom and how you will sell it. Accordingly, we will help you find properties that are in demand on the domestic market. Why do we primarily recommend paying attention to Istanbul for citizenship purposes? And almost all clients, 95%, buy specifically in Istanbul because, as I already mentioned there, the cadastral value matches, unlike on the coast, where the market value is higher than the cadastral value, and you will have to overpay if you want to obtain citizenship, a passport, and if you choose a property on the coast, you'll end up paying around 600 to 800,000. That's why in Istanbul there are many developers. You have more options and, let's say, more reputable developers whose documentation is in order, because the process of obtaining it is not quick and there can be certain difficulties. These are the kinds of issues that arise for clients who come to us after buying something on the coast on their own without checking the documents. But if you still want to purchase property on the coast for yourself, we are also present there and can help you find properties both on the Antalya coast and in Bodrum. Of course, there is much less choice there, but you also need to be very careful, and we will advise you selectively and precisely, recommending only those properties that have the necessary permits so you can obtain citizenship without any problems. Well, the coast is mainly in demand among those who are planning to move there. Istanbul, on the other hand, is popular among those who are interested not only in relocating but also in investing. Firstly, as I already mentioned, it is very popular for resale on the secondary market, but we should not forget that it is, after all, a global capital of tourism. Istanbul ranks first in the world in terms of tourist visits. This is the statistic for the past 24th year. In Istanbul, both long-term rentals and year-round leases are in high demand. You can easily rent out your property for an extended period, since there are many expats moving there for work or study, as well as locals relocating to the city. The second passport I would like to bring to your attention is Vanuatu citizenship. There is no real estate involved here. It is a donation starting from $130,000. Basically, this is the main advantage. The cost of this passport is relatively low, the processing time is quite fast, 2 to 3 months, and the list of required documents is minimal. Additionally, you can include not only children, but also parents in the application. For those who also want to start a business with this passport, it's important to note that there are no taxes on income, wealth, or inheritance here, which is highly sought after and is another reason for its popularity. This is a completely legal program. The procedure is now fully online, but you should keep in mind that starting from May 1, 2025, a visit will be required to provide biometrics. These are the changes to this program. As for where and in which countries, I'll explain that to you during a personal consultation. But there is one nuance. Visa-free travel to Schengen countries has been temporarily suspended. However, despite this, demand for this passport remains high. Greek residence permit. Despite the fact that last year there were changes to this program and the entry threshold was raised to 400, 400 and 800,000 depending on the region, there is still an opportunity to obtain a residence permit for 250,000 if the property is converted from commercial to residential. There aren't many such properties, especially those that will generate income. We don't know how much longer these conditions will remain in effect. So if you're interested in a European residence permit, I recommend not putting it off because everything is changing quickly right now and these conditions could change as well. Leave your contact information below this video and I'll send you properties that meet this criteria. Another advantage of this program is that you can include more relatives than with other programs. In addition to spouses and children from the marriage, you can also include parents from either side, as well as children from previous marriages. So this expands your options. Moreover, financially dependent children can also be included, even if they are 24 years old. This gives you the opportunity, and another plus is that the program is not complicated to apply for. It's quite fast, usually around 3 to 4 months, 6 at most. If, for example, you want your children to study in Europe, Greece offers this possibility. And not only in private, but also in public educational institutions, where your children can study for free with a residence permit. And this gives you the advantage of visa-free travel to Schengen countries, opening accounts in Europe, access to European bank accounts, business opportunities, educating your children, and many other benefits. Let me show you an example using investment in Greece. Here on the screen is an example of an apartment that's already finished. This is how it's delivered, completely ready for rent with furniture and appliances. In the center of Athens, starting from 250,000, this is a one-bedroom apartment, rents out very well, and you can even earn income from it. You don't have to live there yourself. If you're looking to live there, we can select other properties for you. But as I already mentioned, unlike the program where the threshold is 250,000, in some regions, the minimum investment is higher, but for the most part, investment properties are in demand now. So, as I said, we don't have many of these options available. However, in this particular property, for example, there's an added benefit of guaranteed returns 5% initially, and then 3%, but that's entirely up to you. Let's move on to the next country. Hungarian residence permit. The program is somewhat ambiguous because although it was announced last year and officially came into effect in the summer, in reality the fund only started operating recently this year. There was also a fund before this, but it was the first one. Now, the second fund has started operating. The appeal of this program is that it is granted immediately a residence permit for 10 years, with the possibility to extend for another 10 years. But in that case, the investment of 250 must remain in the fund. If you want to get your investment back, you can do so after 5 years. At the same time, the residence permit will remain valid for the entire 10 years, which is also an undeniable advantage. And the process itself is quite fast. The residence permit is issued, and within 3 months, you must make the investment of 250,000. There are no residency requirements in the country. You also gain access to European bank accounts and freedom of movement. There is also an option starting from 1 million a charitable donation, but for obvious reasons it is not popular at the moment. There is no demand for it. The real estate option unfortunately has been removed, even though it was initially announced, so for now only the fund options remain. And there are restrictions. Besides spouses, only children under 18 can be included. Parents cannot be added either. Another interesting program in Europe, which is also through investments-only funds, is Portugal. The main advantage of Portugal is that it offers the opportunity to obtain citizenship after 4 years, in the 5th year, without any residency requirement in the country. Basically, this program is for our more patient clients because the average processing time is about 1.5 years. But the good news is that you can apply for citizenship after 4 years, not from the moment you receive your residence permit, but from the moment you submit your application. In other words, the waiting period is included in those 4 years. This also provides the opportunity. The advantage of this program is visa-free travel within Schengen countries, the ability to open a private business, open accounts in Europe, and it's also possible to get your investment back after 5 years. The tax regime is also very attractive. And here it's important to note that although the official investment amount starts at 250,000, which is a contribution to support cultural and artistic activities, in reality, finding such funds or projects is more theoretical than practical. In practice, the funds that are actually operating now start at 500,000. So you should plan for that amount. I specifically mentioned that it starts from 250,000 because you might come across such figures somewhere in the information space. That's why I'm explaining to you in detail that in reality the two working options are 500,000. This is also a refundable contribution after 5 years, either through funds or you can invest in a new company or an existing Portuguese company. The only requirement is that you need to create at least 5 jobs. We also have clients who have done this. For example, they had a company operating in another country and then they opened it in Portugal. This is also possible. This gives a bit more opportunity for our clients who have their own business and want to expand and open it in Europe. As I already mentioned, basically you just need to be patient and there are certain challenges with this program regarding the timeline, but we guide you step by step throughout these 1.5 years, providing a roadmap, explaining what actions and documents are needed at each stage and how to transfer funds and so on. Yes, there are certain challenges and specific requirements, but all of them are surmountable. There are successful cases. So if you are interested in this program or specifically in this country for relocation, we can provide a personalized consultation, review your case, and during the individual consultation, you'll understand whether this program is suitable for you or not. But let's get back to investments through real estate. And there is also a program in Cyprus. Cyprus remains consistently popular among both tourists and investors. It is not part of the Schengen area, but it is a member country of the European Union. However, it's important to keep in mind that joining the Schengen area is just around the corner. Yes, it's been discussed for a long time, for several years, that it's about to happen, but the government of Cyprus has already announced that this will happen at the end of 2025 or at the beginning of 2026, as all the requirements have already been met. Therefore, naturally, this will lead to either the entry threshold being raised, or, judging by past experience, there will be some other complications. Cyprus is also attractive, let's say, because of its favorable tax system, whether you want to open a company here as a legal entity or as an individual. It is also known for its high level of safety and excellent climate. All of this is in demand among those who want to rent out their property for the long term, since the season here is quite long on, could even say year-round. If you are not planning to move to this country or consider it for obtaining a residence permit, your investment will still work for you. Plus, it will also appreciate in value. The program itself is not particularly fast, it takes about a year, and you also need to keep in mind that the compliance process here is quite strict. But we assist with this, and a personal preliminary consultation is absolutely necessary to review your case and understand it. There are rather high requirements for documentation, for how to present it, and for meeting all the necessary criteria. So be sure to leave your contact information below this video, and we will provide a consultation together with a lawyer and the developer for the selected property, so you can understand what additional taxes may apply. Because there are two systems here, VAT, which is set at 19%. But if this is your first property, and you specify that it is for your own residence, then you get a 14% discount, and in fact the VAT will be 5%. However, there are some nuances here, which is why a personal consultation is necessary. So in addition to the fact that joining the Schengen area is just around the corner, another advantage of this country, and more specifically of this residence permit program, is that you don't have to buy just one property, you can buy two. And it doesn't have to be just residential property, it can also be commercial. You can include children. Previously it was possible to include parents, but unfortunately that's no longer allowed. And the amounts you need to show as your annual income have also changed. It's also no less than 30,000, plus specific amounts for a spouse and child. But here there is no requirement for permanent residence in order to maintain your residence permit. It's important to note that this is a permanent residence permit, which requires visiting Cyprus at least once every 2 years. Yes, so this is not a temporary but a permanent one. And there is also an opportunity to obtain citizenship under certain conditions. Let's look at examples of the most in-demand properties. These are still two cities in Cyprus, Paphos and Limassol. Here in Paphos, there is a property that is perfect both for living in and for renting out. The minimum threshold starts exactly at the required amount for a residence permit, and the property has all the necessary infrastructure. Paphos, unlike Limassol, is a quieter city. It's more popular among those who don't like the hustle and bustle and prefer a peaceful vacation or living environment. There is more greenery there than in Limassol. Well, the beaches are good both in Limassol and in Paphos. For example, there is also property in Limassol. In Limassol, if you've been there, you know that they build high-rise buildings, unlike in Paphos, but they're not suitable for everyone. We offer, for those who don't like living in high-rises, a property that will literally be completed this year, and it also perfectly fits the requirements for a residence permit. The quality of construction in Cyprus is well known and always consistently high. That's why your property here will always be in demand if you decide to resell it in the future. Tourism and the influx of expats from all over the world are always consistently high in Cyprus. So both for renting out and for resale, this is an ideal investment. If you want to move to Cyprus, as many of our clients have done, whether for permanent residence, to start a business, or for your children's education, Cyprus is renowned for its schools and its fairly high-level international universities. That's why this country is suitable both for investment and for living. To wrap up our European segment on residence permits, I want to draw your attention to one more country, Montenegro, which has consistently been in demand for many years, mainly as a destination for relocation or as a kind of remote summer home. The advantage of the residence permit program there is that there is no minimum threshold. You can purchase real estate for virtually any amount, and under certain conditions, there is also the possibility of obtaining citizenship. To renew your residence permit, you are not required to actually live there, just owning property is enough. This program is processed fairly quickly and easily. You can also run a business there. If you move there, you have access to education and medical services. I'd also like to point out that Montenegro has a fairly high chance of joining the Schengen area in the future. Some people are skeptical about this, but people were also skeptical about countries like Romania and Bulgaria. Nevertheless, these countries have now joined the Schengen agreement. So Montenegro also has a pretty good chance. That's why I advise you not to put off your decision if you want to move there and obtain a residence permit. Yes, as is generally the case in all European countries, the requirements for obtaining a residence permit here are fairly standard. The procedure and the set of documents are quite typical. Children here are considered dependents up to the age of 18. The residence permit here can be renewed. As long as you own property, you can keep extending it indefinitely. That's how it works. And using this particular property as an example, I want to show you what the prices are like here. At the moment, there aren't that many primary properties available on the real estate market in Montenegro. Most of what's on offer is secondary housing. But when purchasing property, you should keep in mind that at some point you'll want to sell it, and the more completed the property is, the more attractive it will be as an investment for future resale. That's why we're offering you this project, both from an investment perspective, since it will be completed this year, and as a relocation option with modern construction and all the necessary infrastructure nearby. This property also features a pool, a spa, a fitness center, and offers views of the coastline. In other words, what more could you need for a comfortable life? Additionally, this region is in high demand for rental properties. To conclude our webinar on these programs and to sum up this section on European countries, I want to once again draw your attention to the fact that there are not that many investment programs. In fact, there are fewer and fewer of them. For example, Spain's Golden Visa program is now closing. Previously, last year, Portugal removed the real estate option. Yes, only the funds option remains. Even earlier, Montenegro closed its citizenship program for everyone. Therefore, you shouldn't expect the situation to change dramatically here. And make decisions based on the programs that are currently available after an individual consultation, where you will receive information, and I will explain all the steps of the process for obtaining a passport or residence permit. Yes, depending on your goals and objectives, we will select the property that best suits your needs. Why else is a personal consultation necessary? We will review each case with you individually. Yes, depending on the age of your children and the composition of your family. Yes, this also affects the cost of processing in some programs. We will go over where, how, and what is the best way to open an account, and how to pay for this property depending on the requirements of the program. Depending on which bank you use, in which currency your money is held, and what documentation the bank requires for payment. If your goal is to relocate, then it is even more important for you to have at least basic information about the location where you are choosing property, its infrastructure, educational institutions for children, the conditions of studying there, the cost of medical insurance, and many other related questions that always come up during the process of adapting to a new country. All the more so after purchasing property, you should not be surprised by any associated expenses and taxes. You need to know who will manage your property and how it will be managed if you plan to rent it out. If your goal is not relocation, but specifically investment. So I look forward to seeing all of you at personal consultation, either by phone or via Zoom, in whatever format is most convenient for you. If necessary, we will involve our partners, lawyers, and developers so that you have all the comprehensive information before starting the process of purchasing and obtaining a passport or residence permit in another country. All the best to everyone, and see you soon. Thank you for your attention.